Hey horror fans, welcome back to Room 237 as I continue my marathon of 80s slasher films. And with this, I'm going back to 1983's Sweet 16, which I do like that. Excuse me, I do like that cover. But, like a number of these slasher films, there's not really a whole lot to say about it. It was directed by Jim Sotos, who directed for Forced Entry, Hot Moves, Beverly Hills Brats, Texas Lightning, films I'm not familiar with. Who also produced the film, written by Irwin Goldman. It has a pretty big cast. Bo Hopkins plays the sheriff. He was in a lot of major films like The Wild Bunch, American Graffiti, Man Who Loved Cat Dancing, A Midnight Express. We also have Susan Strasberg, who kind of reminds me of Barbara Steele in some scenes. I think I might have said that in another review. But she was also in Bloody Birthday. I know she was in another one that I've done more recently than Bloody Birthday, but I don't see it on here. But she is the daughter of Lee Strasberg, who of course is one of the leading innovators of method acting. Inspired Pacino, Christian Bale, a bunch of people. We also have Dana Kimmel, who the year before this did Friday the 13th Part 3. She brought her Friday the 13th Part 3 acting into this as well. And what was his name? Steve Anton, who I think people will recognize him as Troy, the douchebag from the Goonies. So you have a pretty recognizable cast. But the lead girl, who plays Melissa, Elisa Shirley, she really reminded me of Barbara Steele in several scenes. And this is a slasher where it is built more on the mystery. You don't have too many kills. It's not an effects film, but it is quite vicious and there is blood. But there's not really a whole lot to say about it. It is kind of a run-of-the-mill mystery slasher. Because this girl, Melissa Morgan, played by Elisa Shirley, she's new in town. She's 15, about to turn 16. And that's the thing, like, she turned 16, like, right at the end of the film, I think it was. But she meets Hank Burke, played by Troy from the Goonies, and his friend Johnny outside at a bar. Johnny invites her out. They go out for a little bit. They have some beer. He drops her back off. Her strict father gets really pissed, says, she's only 15, don't give her beer, now go away. His truck breaks down, he starts walking, and he's attacked by an unseen killer. And the kills are very typical of this kind of slasher film. POV shots, kind of shaky cam. But it's like, it's sort of the modus operandi, a bunch of stabs in the back with slashes to the face as well. Bo Hopkins is the sheriff and father to Dana Kimmel and Troy's characters. He's the mother, I think, died some years ago. He's dating this one woman. Dana Kimmel is obsessed with murder mysteries and thinks she's Nancy Drew and talks like a detective a lot. Troy, or I don't want to call him Troy through the whole review. Hank, he's kind of your jockey guy. And basically what drives the plot slasher wise is any guy that gets close to Melissa ends up being killed. And it does set it up in a few different ways. There is this subplot where there's these two Native Americans, younger one and an older one, probably his father or grandfather. They are harassed by some of the locals in town, more like the redneck stereotypes. At one point, the elderly one hangs himself. Which it's ruled as a suicide, but the whole feud with the Native Americans and the stereotypical bigots, it doesn't really go anywhere. Just sort of I guess sort of a subplot to try to get your mind in one direction, more or less. It also kind of makes you look at Melissa's father because of how strict he is, because there's this other guy that takes her out, this guy Tommy, but while he's waiting for her, he too is stabbed in the same fashion. Oh, it was because Gray Feather, I believe, is the elderly one. Actually, I do want to just double check their names. There's Gray Feather and Long Shadow. Okay, so Gray Feather is the elderly one. Melissa sees him standing over Tommy's body at one point, so she tells the sheriff that he did it. And then when he goes to question him, sees that he's been hanged, so then they book his nephew or grandson. I just want to see. But anyway, without going too much into the plot, because it is a pretty standard run-of-the-mill. I mean, there are more intricate stuff with it, like Long Shadow being booked, and the whole thing with how he's been hired by this one guy for some sort of dig that's going on. Without getting into all that, there will be spoilers in this because it is more so built on more of like a mystery. A lot like how a lot of slashers were inspired by Italian giallo. I would say this is more of the giallo-inspired slasher. Again, it's not a giallo, it's a fucking slasher. But, yeah, even reading up on this, there was stuff that I kind of didn't catch because a lot of the side plot stuff is kind of boring, and I felt like it wasn't really needed. It does feel like it tries to divert your expectations. But Melissa does get a big 16th birthday party. At one point, the sheriff is with his girlfriend, who I don't even think it ever really establishes who she is. And like, who is... Oh, Jason is Long Shadow. Long Shadow was fired from the dig for stealing artifacts, like knives. And he finds the knives, like, in his trunk as he goes to question him at one point. But yeah, he's checking all these old records, and because he thinks there's something missing from the case. It sees that Jason can't be the killer, which at this point he's already locked up. Which Jason Long Shadow does get out. Getting his dinner, he beats up the deputy. And it all comes to a head because Hank and Melissa go out skinny dipping together. And again, she really reminds me of Barbara Steele. The two bigots from the beginning are there. They're sort of watching him. Then Long Shadow comes up. He's pretty determined that they killed Greyfeather and either staged it to look like a suicide or drove him to suicide. So of course he gets in a scuffle with them, but they beat the hell out of him. And the unseen killer pretty much wraps up the rest of the film because they try to attack Melissa. They beat up Hank. If this is sounding confusing, it's because I'm not doing a very good job. I was trying to go chronologically of the main plot and then do the subplots, you know, on the side, and I kind of fucked myself up. I don't feel like redoing the review anyway. It is a very run-of-the-mill, forgettable slasher. But, you find out that the killer, spoilers, I think you already know my opinion of the film. If you have to check out every slasher, go for it. But, you know, it's for free on YouTube. I don't think it's one that's really gonna stick because it is very blended with the sea of the rest. But you find out that the killer at the end is actually Melissa's mother, played by Susan Strasberg. And she has, like, Melissa's knocked out, the two bigots have been killed, Long Shadow is still knocked out, Hank is there, the sheriff is there, Dana Kimmel is there, the mother, who's covered in blood, which we actually do get a sense that the killer is a known person because when Hank wakes up from being knocked out by the bigots, he's like, oh, what are you doing here? And he gets stabbed in the arm, gets chased. So Hank is there. The killer, the mother's over Melissa. Dana Kimmel's there. The sheriff's there. He's trying to get her to calm down. And she has like this disembodied experience, calling herself Joanne and saying like, Daddy, you know, Dad, you can't hurt us anymore. So she's out of it. He's able to pull Melissa away from her, and as he tries to go for the knife, she stabs herself, commits suicide. So then we get the exposition at the end where the sheriff is talking to the husband, Melissa's strict dad, and reveals that, you know, her name is Trisha, who's the sister of Joanne. And Trisha believes that Melissa is Joanne during her delusion. And what happened was her father, Susan Strasberg's father, was very abusive to her and her sister. Her sister got put away in a mental hospital and died 20 years ago. She assumed her identity but also sees Melissa as Joanne and sees all these male influences or, you know, male relationships as like the father and wants to protect her from them, from the abuse that she will receive, or at least in her delusion. So it's like, okay, I mean, that plot device works. I thought that was that's definitely the most interesting part of the film. And of course, while the sheriff is looking at these old records trying to find the missing clues, he does come across some old articles from like the 50s, and that's when he doesn't fully put it together at that point, but you're just like, oh, okay, so something happened in the 50s, that's the catalyst for this killer, which normally in slashers, that would be the opening of the film, something from the 50s, you know, happening as like the genesis of the killer, but they didn't do that, which, okay, that's different. They saved it all. They saved it all for the Psycho ending with the exposition at the end. And I thought that worked. Okay, so the mother has this delusion, you know, the explanation worked. I just thought the film and the build-up itself was pretty generic, and I keep saying run-of-the-mill, but that's what it is. It's a very, you know, blended in, you're sort of faceless in the sea of others build up. You don't get a lot of kills. I mean, you get I think you get like 2 actual kills and then the 2 bigots. And one of the bigots has a bunch of slashes on his face and is all bloodied up. But all in all, it is a pretty generic, forgettable slasher. I enjoyed it. I just thought, you know, it was kind of, okay. I mean, I guess the most interesting aspect would have been the mystery aspect. I liked the reveal. I liked the explanation. I liked the poster for the film. But yeah, there's really not much to Sweet 16. I would say it does suck that it's a bit forgotten. I don't know if this has a Blu-ray or an Arrow release. It is better than some of the other mystery-oriented slashers, like, say, Night School. Way better than Night School. It's not that I didn't like it. I don't know. This is not a rant. It's just, I felt it was a little, not slow, but I don't know. I'm just going to keep repeating myself. It felt generic, but I liked the ending. I thought the ending, the explanation worked. So I liked that a lot. And Elisa Shirley, who played Melissa, that final shot where, okay, everyone's talked to the police. She's going to go inside. We see her back too. She's like, everything's fine. She's not engaging to being addressed by Melissa. But she gets up, walks inside, and we just see her walk towards the camera through her front door. And under the blanket, she has the dagger, it looks like the knife, that her mother was using. And she just has this wide-eyed stare. Looks just like Barbara Steele. So I thought that was really cool. But yeah, pretty generic slasher, but I liked the reveal and the explanation at the end. Best, most interesting part, but that is 1983's Sweet 16. Thank you for watching.